Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Enlightened Conversations. Really excited for today and to introduce you guys to today's guest. We have Kitty Waters, who is out in Europe. I didn't ask you specifically what city, but she'll tell us. Excited to talk to her. Kitty is a spiritual business coach, and I came across her Instagram page just about a week or so ago and a couple weeks ago, and saw immediately the love and light she was sharing with her audience, and sent her a voice message and told her she was awesome and I would love to have a conversation with her. And we immediately found out we were vibing on the same frequency, and I wanted to share some love and light with you guys. So without further ado for me, let me introduce you guys to Kitty, and you can share with the audience so they're more familiar with you, who you are, what you do, why you do it, all that good stuff.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Noel. It's so lovely to be with you and your audience. And as you can hear from my accent, I'm British. So I live in a place called Chichester, which is close to Brighton. And I'm a transformational teacher, and I work particularly with women, helping them do their Dharma and uncover their purpose. And I have a program called the Dharma Life Program, and I've had about 80 women go through the program, and it's all about unlocking your greatest potential, uncovering your purpose, and creating the life of your dreams. I've taken myself from nervous breakdown, drug and alcohol problems, to where I am today. And it's been quite a big transition, but it taught me so much about the universe and the laws of the universe and vibration. And I checked out your Instagram, Noel, as well. And I was like, wow, this man has got a fabulous vibe. So yeah, let's get into that and talk a little bit more about that. But it's a pleasure to be here, and I know that we're going to have a fantastic conversation.
I love it. Well, thank you for those kind words, and already inspired me just in hinting on your journey. And I find it fascinating for all of us in humanity how generally we have some type of hard challenges that we go through at various parts of our lives, and I'm always so happy for those like yourself. And I'm an example of this as well, like where those challenges don't take us completely out of the game, where like we actually leave physical, like we actually get to stay here and keep playing this game called life. And then, we can have some light bulb moments where all of a sudden, not only are we seeing our lives evolve for the better, but then also we can choose to actually, be an example, which is great. And then also maybe take it a step further and help other people like you're doing now, which is awesome. For you, like, how did the light bulb kind of come on where, all of a sudden you're like, wow, like there's some other things going on here that maybe I wasn't aware of, and you were excited to explore that?
Absolutely. Well, I had a massive history of depression, which ran down the female side of my family. We had generations and generations of bipolar. We had suicide. We had, my grandmother was in and out of an asylum. We had lithium, you name it. Now, the thing that was unspoken in my family was this wasn't shared to me as a child, as you can imagine. And actually, at the age of 21, I found myself suffering with chronic depression. But of course, this would never been talked about. It was like the family secret. So from the age of 21, where I had my nervous breakdown, to 28, I suffered with really bad chronic depression. I was floating up out of my body. I felt disconnected on a regular basis, had really down, dark patches where I did think about taking my life, use drugs and alcohol to cope and to kind of escape. And obviously it's the worst thing that you can do. And then at 28, my mother had a very bad depression episode and tried to commit suicide. And very long story short, I remember going home to my parents. My mother had sort of disappeared, and I remember my dad was in the living room with a policeman, and the policeman said, "Has your mother ever tried to commit suicide before?" And I say no, and my dad said yes. And at that point was when I found out about my family history. At that point, my dad said, "Oh, well, actually, when she was younger, my mum had had postnatal depression with me, postnatal depression with my sister. She tried to commit suicide before." But all of this had been completely hidden in our family. So it was quite a generational, I think we choose to come into these situations. I'm sure I've sort of seen your story. It's almost like we choose to break those family lines and those patterns that run through generations. And in that moment, I remember thinking, what the hell? My whole paradigm shattered. But of course, I had to go look for my mum. And we went, my boyfriend at the time was a paramedic, my sister, we went to look for my mum, and there's a huge expanse of woods at the back of our house. And I remember thinking, well, where is she? How on earth are we going to find her? I mean, you could turn left, you could turn right, you know, we just didn't know where she was. And my sister was saying, well, which way do we go? Do we go left? Do we go right? And at that point, I suddenly got a voice speak to me in my head and say, you need to turn right. So I said, we have to turn right. And my sister said, how do you know we need to turn right? And the voice said, turn right. And this voice basically guided me to where my mum had taken an overdose, but obviously we managed to find her, and called the ambulance. And I remember running for this ambulance, like this voice kind of in my head. And I remember sort of praying at that time saying, I know I smoked, I drank, I was overweight, I was doing drugs. I knew I wasn't living life how I was supposed to. And I remember running along saying, look, I know I need to change. I'll do anything. Just please, God, help my mum. You know, please get her out of this situation. And luckily for us, she was okay. We got her into counseling. But the situation for myself was a huge wake-up call. It sent me down a very big personal development and spiritual development rabbit hole, because I wanted to understand where can this voice come from, and you know, it woke me up spiritually, which I'm so grateful for.
Super interesting. And you said something right there at the beginning that I want to highlight for the audience, because I've talked about it a few times. You mentioned it, but I'm so for me, Kitty, there's things that are, you know, really, really strong beliefs, and then there's knowings. And the really, really strong beliefs are only, I call them that because I'm still leaving room for possibility for it to be some other way. But when you mention you feel like we choose to come here into certain situations, and experience them, that's a really, really strong belief, almost a knowing for me, but I'm just leaving room for possibility that could be, you know, slightly different than what I perceive it to be. But like really my belief when it comes to that is we choose because our souls, because our energy are eternal and, you know, are continuously living on. I really do feel like we choose the life experience that we're going to live, in part so that our soul can evolve the way that it needs to here in this incarnation. So, you know, if you choose a family that, you know, has a long line of depression, and, you know, that's something that you have to, you know, experience and overcome, and that helps you evolve to where you are. Or if someone
Absolutely.
has chosen to come here and, you know, maybe be, you know, handicapped or have a, you know, a severe learning disability or some kind of other challenge, that's helping, you know, their soul evolve as well. So I really do, that's almost a knowing, but again, I'm just leaving room for possibility. But I feel like that's really what, you know, we choose to do before we come.
I think everything is about our soul's evolution, you know. Yeah. I would totally agree with you. You know, it was the best training ground for me, having gone through 8-10 years of depression, chronic depression. You know, it was the best training ground for me now with the work that I do, because I love to work with people who are suffering with depression and anxiety, because I know what it's like. You know, I've totally been where they've been, and I know how it feels, and I know how you can work through it, because that was my journey. You know, I worked through it to the point where now I don't suffer and I don't have any form of depression at all. And it was like the best training ground for me. So I think it's, you know, exactly what you were saying. It's like our soul chooses these situations, you know, for us to be able to evolve and grow, and essentially, in an ideal case scenario, come through it and then help others through that same journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I also love what you said when you received guidance the way that you did. And one thing I love knowing about just our experience here is we can receive guidance when we're ready to receive it in so many different ways. It could be a strong like voice to where it's like, turn right, you know, for you, like that's really, really powerful. And, you know, I've heard lots of scenarios like this where really we're talking like life and death, like all of a sudden we can be guided to where, you know, if that wasn't heard or listened to, then, you know, someone, you know, might not be here in the physical. And in this case, you know, your mom might not have been able to make it if you guys didn't find her when you did. So, and then like for me, I've noticed in my life so many times where I've been in some of my lowest states. I can remember one time in particular where only time I could really consider myself for an ongoing period of time depressed, because I just couldn't see any direction that I wanted to go in life. I thought I was going to be doing one thing since the time I was 2, playing professional sports. And then at 23, I finally knew that wasn't going to happen. I had an injury at 21. And so those 2 years were like, let me still try to make it. And then from like 23 to like 26, it was just like, just so lost, not knowing what to do with life. And then I all of a sudden had a synchronicity come where a book needed to come into my experience to bring me back to presence. Like The Power of Now, I attracted to Eckhart Tolle. And the way that it came into my life was like, I moved into a new place, had a bunch of roommates, and the only thing left in the whole house was like 3 books, spiritual books, in like the corner of the garage, like dusty and like what are these? You know, so it's just
love it.
Yeah,
Absolutely love it. And the thing was, like you said, you were open to receiving guidance, because a lot of other people might not have even been aware and might not have seen that.
Absolutely. We definitely have to be open to receiving it or hearing it. And that's a really good lesson. I've learned that also ongoing, and I'm sure you've noticed this as well in your life, Kitty, as we want to help those around us or people that we care about, or even strangers sometimes. There's people that are just in our path. And if they're not ready or asking or ready to receive, guidance coming through us to try to share some things, we could still plant some seeds, and, maybe like down the road, like they'll be like, oh, that's what that Kitty human was telling me back then, or that Noel human was saying on that podcast. But I just learned that when we are ready and to receive it, then, we'll get the guidance, and it can come from so many different ways, to a person, to a YouTube video. I mean, just so many ways. So I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm curious, because just with you mentioned, and I think it's so awesome that you actually really enjoy working with those that are with anxiety and depression, because you've been there. And so it's really fulfilling for you to see them come out of that. What are like some of the things, like for anybody listening in the audience, that just like foundationally, that you would want anybody to know that could benefit them, whether they're suffering from anxiety or depression or not, but just some of the things you become aware of foundationally that you'd like to share?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. The key thing in my own journey, which I've experienced with others, is most of us have a backlog of emotions that we haven't processed. When we're a kid, we're open, we're joyful, we cry at the drop of a hat, we let the emotion move through us. And then slowly but surely, obviously, we get conditioned, and then we're kind of told, well, you can't just cry in public. You have to bottle, you have to cover things up, and you just have to stuff everything back down. Even worse for men, it's not the done thing. I think it's changing now. But in my family, emotion was not expressed. It was very British. It was very stiff upper lip. I'd never really seen anybody had any problems. Of course, there were problems happening, but they were hidden from me as a child. So my model of the world was such that you didn't cry. Crying was for the weak. And so therefore, I didn't do it. Now, when we have a backlog of unprocessed negative emotions, they literally, talking about vibration, the way I look at it is they weigh us down. And I had a situation where I actually fell in love with a man I worked with who was engaged to be married to another woman. And because I was so ashamed of myself because he was engaged to be married to another woman, I hated myself. I didn't tell anybody. I internalized all of the emotions that I was holding on to the point where I cracked. And now what I kind of see in a lot of other people as well is most of us have had this sort of similar conditioning where we don't understand that if we feel our emotions, if we cry, we release them and they move through us. Most of the time what we do is we hold on to them, we bottle them up, and we push them away, and we pretend they don't exist. So most people who are suffering with anxiety and depression generally will have a backlog of unprocessed emotions that they've never ever felt with or dealt with. Now, one of the things I love to do when I start to work with people is a simple exercise, but it's journaling. If you are listening to this and you're suffering with periods of anxiety and depression, panic attacks, please adopt this practice. Every time you get up in the morning, I want you to take an A4, and it's better if it's A4 because it's quite a big piece of paper, and write 3 sides of A4 paper about exactly what is going through your head. The random thoughts that we all think. There is no right or wrong to this, but it's your stream of consciousness. Now, if you think about this in an energetic perspective, what I've just been talking about is most of us have a backlog of emotions. Now, if you're writing out what's going on for you, and I encourage you to write about how you feel as well, and it could be, I'm really angry, I'm really frustrated, I'm whatever it is you're feeling in that moment, you write it down. Effectively, that is leaving your system. It's leaving your energetic body. So it's a way of decompressing your nervous system. Now, if you think about most people probably are carrying around 20, 30, in my case, it was 20 years of unprocessed emotions. You have to find a way to release them. And journaling is such a simple way, but it's so effective. So if you're yourself, and it will take probably a week or so to kick in, but then you will notice you'll feel much clearer, you'll have much more clarity. And if you continue to do that, you'll find over a sort of 6-month period that your panic attacks will lessen. So that's where we start. And then the other thing that happens is we tend to trap ourselves with beliefs. So listening to your story, Noel, I did actually go and look at your stuff before I came on. And I can imagine being a professional sports person. That's been your dream, your life for so long. And of course, what tends to happen is if we have a dream like that, we kind of think that we'll be a failure if we don't achieve what it is we've set ourselves up to do. And of course, we tend to trap ourselves with our own belief system. Now, of course, you're not going to be a failure. You've gone on to being a massive success. But in that moment, you believed that you potentially would be a failure if you didn't fulfill in what it was. And so we can trap ourselves with our belief system. In my case, I was 30, I was single, I didn't have children. All the things that society told me that I needed to have, do, and be, I didn't have. And so I was deeming myself and classing myself as a failure. Now, again, if you're listening to this, have a look at what you believe about life and what you believe about life to be true, because the chances are you will be trapping yourself with your emotions. And the chances are those things that you are beating yourself up about aren't the only way. And you aren't a failure because certain things don't work. So those are just, two very simple things that people can do if they're feeling and suffer in the moment, what we're talking about.
I love that. That's such a great practice for all of us. Journaling is so valuable, and definitely, I'm so appreciative that you shared that as far as if anybody out there is having, challenge with anxiety and depression, because that makes total sense, being able to, just starting that practice, of getting your thoughts out there and writing it down. And I'm super excited because when I, share, journaling, typically it's to just to write about whatever comes out, and just don't be afraid to write about what you're excited about, as life, and just, because then it just can start to feel really, really good as it's coming out. But I love that as for, a therapy to ourselves, and, to be able to get our, our those unprocessed emotions out. I love that so much. It's interesting. You just made me think of something I've never thought of before. And I'm very appreciative that my mind went this way, because when we talked about being open to receiving the guidance, because I never thought I might be a failure. I never thought that, but because I just worded it differently, and I'm thankful that I did. And I don't know why at that time I did. It's just, I guess, the way that I was wired at that point. But I was thinking, how can I be as successful as I thought I was going to be in professional sports now?
Beautiful.
And so it still made me feel miserable when I was reaching for this. I don't know how I'm going to do it, because I was anxious about doing it, but I was still striving for it versus
Nice.
now I'm going to be a failure. So I don't know why but that's just where my brain went. So that allowed me to attract some things into my life that can answer that question, because I'm all about powerful questions to the universe, as far as how can I still be the success that I want to be, is a much more powerful question than, am I going to be a failure now? That's a much more disempowering question. So I never thought of that before, but you just made me think of that just now. It's just interesting.
Absolutely, because powerful, totally powerful. Because if you'd have framed it differently, like you said, you would have closed yourself down, but you framed it in such a way that you opened yourself up to that possibility, and there was a book answering your question.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this. So just a simple shift in questions, and the way that we speak to ourselves and out to the universe can make such a big difference. I'm so pro just empowering questions, and then not needing to know the answer right now in this second, because we might not be ready to receive it right in the second, but just being excited for the answer and expecting the answer to come when we're ready is very important.
Yeah. And I think you can only receive what you are the vibration of. So, one of the questions that I love to get people to do is, say you're going through a traumatic period like you were in your life, or like I was, if we can then, shift ourselves. So we feel the emotion, we release it, we let it go, we shift our body. So we then would go for a run, or we then would do something which puts us back into a high energetic state. And then we would ask the question, why is this happening for my highest good? What is the good that is coming out of this situation? And because we've released the negative and we've then shifted ourselves back into a high vibrational state, then we pose the question, we are much more likely to get an empowering answer. Because then we're going to be able to see, well, why is this? Why am I going through this situation? What have I learned? And then, of course, the universe will give you that answer.
Absolutely.
And that will enable us to move through the difficult times.
Absolutely. So important what Kitty just described, because that's the key as far as being in the vibration and the frequency where we can receive the answer, which, the way I like to describe that is anything that feels like, at least at peace and content. And if it can feel better than that, where we get our vibe up, because like you mentioned, like if exercise does it for you, that's always done it for me. So without even knowing it, maybe just because like being active is just a part of my life. It always has been. That's always helped. And I know if like I'm feeling like crappy, or if I'm thinking about something and I'm anxious about it, like I'm not going to be thinking about that thing when I'm at the gym. So it's just good even just to get to your attention off of that, which ultimately a lot of times is what we need to allow our frequency to raise back, our vibration to raise back, where we can now receive answers. And since I was in the shower a couple of weeks ago, Kitty, and normally in the shower I receive really good ideas, because I'm not like in there to like hurry up and rush through it. Like I always get good ideas in the shower, and that's my story about it. So it happens a lot. But I found myself thinking about something from maybe 6 or 7 years ago that was a really challenging time of life and business, and some things that happened and some things I could have done differently. And I know not to think about that subject unless I think about the parts of it that I appreciate because of the lessons that I learned and all that. But this day I wasn't thinking about those parts. I was thinking about the parts that were like had caused lots of traumatic life experience. And I've caught myself, which I'm very aware of, like my energy and my vibration as far as momentum going one way or the other. And I went from like feeling good getting in the shower, all of a sudden like not feeling so good. And so I was aware of it, and I was like, Noel, just get back to like focusing on, just be present on the shower, like stop thinking about anything, and just getting back to peace and just being present to what I was doing and not letting my mind wander to past traumatic events. I was back in vibrations where I could actually receive an answer to a question that I've been asking when it still comes to business. And I got the answer like right then and there. So it was almost like my vibration needed to drop a little bit, return back. And then just that returning back made me a frequency match to answers to questions that I asked. It was really interesting how all that happened in one shower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Went up the whole emotional vibrational scale and back, and then
right.
Yeah.
So it could happen at any time for us. So that's awesome. So right now we're recording this, Kitty. We're at the beginning of 2020. Like, what are you excited about this year? Or what's going on in your world out there in Europe? And
well, this is a metal rat year. So what that means is it's a very fast energy year, and we have to be very selective about where we put our energy. And I am a very kind of fast, quite high energy person, and I've already noticed that everything's speeding up. So for me, I'm being very vigilant with my meditation practice, with anything that sort of slows me down, my Reiki. And where I'm really looking is I'm really refining and looking at what I want to achieve and what I want to do this year. And I'm really kind of letting go of things that maybe are distracting me from my higher purpose. So for me this year, I run the Dharma Life Academy, which I think I mentioned before, which is a program for women, 7-week online program. I've had 80 women go through the program. Essentially, it's consciousness shift. It's for people looking to uncover their purpose and essentially create a life of your dreams. I think I said to you, I've kind of come from this dark place to now, very lucky, living a dream a life I never even thought possible. And so that my wish is that I can show and help as many people to do that. And so we take you through a 7-week online program, and then we have a mastery community. So I'm just about to do a big launch. We do a Follow Your Highest Excitement challenge where I explain the laws of the universe. And then we go into the 7-week program, and then we have a mastery community. So I do that twice a year. That's something building, the momentum's building. Just done something quite interesting. I changed my business name by numerology to strengthen the vibrational foundations of my company. I think I mentioned to you, I also changed my name as well for the sort of similar reasons. I had a lot of addiction problems in my Kitty and Kate have a lot of addiction problems. So it's a 12-3 vibration. So I've gone through a process to change my name, which is my new name is Aloise. So I'm rebranding. So that's something exciting for me and nerve-wracking, if I'm honest, because I'm literally completely reinventing myself. And I like to walk on my talk, Noel. I think it's really important that we're in this conversation, we're doing this work, you know, we're leading a conversation about vibration and energy. So I want to be able to speak from my own experience about my name change and the impact. And so far, so good. Since I have changed my name, which is a year ago, I've given up alcohol. I've given up meat. I let go of a different business. I was running a coaching practice and I was running another business at the same time, but I let go of my other business purely to focus on my coaching practice. So some big changes have happened in my life, and it's interesting to know whether that's due to my vibration or not, but I'm kind of rolling with it. So there's lots of big things happening this year.
Absolutely. It's definitely due to your vibration, in part, at least, because of your practice way of being and your vibration. You're attracting, because we all have the life experience. And I mean, you know this, and I'm going to call you Eloise for the rest of the episode because I like that. Actually, I got confused. I thought you went from Eloise to Kitty, so I've been calling you that. If I would have, I've misunderstood. So
it's okay.
Now it's the other way. So perfect. But no, just for all of us, like with all of our life experience up until now, like we've experienced the things that have now have us as clear as we've ever been up until right now, as far as the things that we desire, where direction we want to go. And that'll continue to become more and more clear the more life experience we live beyond here. And so because of Eloise's practice vibration and any of our practice vibration where we are, that allows us to, like we've been talking about, be a frequency match to ideas, synchronicities, people, places, circumstances that help us on that journey to the things that we now know that we desire in the direction we want to go. And so all these things that Aloise just described that she's changed, it's all been in alignment with the direction that she knows that she wants to go in her life from the clarity that she has as of today. And for all of us, it's the same way. So that's why the only thing I really focus on, or, you know, my most important thing for me, or anything, if I could help someone with one thing, it's just to focus on what, you know, we can control, which is present moment vibration, present moment awareness. Like, what's my vibe right now here in the moment? And just letting that be what it is, be okay. But if we have a desire to be connected with, call it God, the universe, love, all it is, with these awesome synchronicities, these awesome ideas, since that's like what's most important to me, like I'm just aware when my frequency is where I like it to be or it isn't. I'll make myself wrong when it isn't, because then it just gets worse. So I'm just aware of it, and then making that my priority and being able to do things like we talked about, like going to work out, or for some of us, maybe listen to music, or maybe taking some rest, or, you know, playing with our animals or our kids, or whatever it is. We all have things that allow our momentum, if it's going in a direction we don't like it to go, to slow. And then we can return back. Meditation, if you meditate out there, I highly recommend. So there's always these things to where we can become that frequency match to the path lighting up for us. So now we're like, ooh, this feels good. And then you can go in that direction, and it's just constant evolution. So.
Yeah, what I thought was quite interesting with the numerology work was that obviously the date you're born gives you your life mission and your life path effectively. And then the name that you're given sits on top of that. Now that can even strengthen your mission, or it can, in my case, it had addiction was one of the things that was really, really kind of strong in my name. And I have gone through a huge amount of transformation in my life from the age of like 28 to I'm 42 now. And I still struggled with, you know, wondering was never quite enough for me. Like, I wasn't an alcoholic, but I never quite could, you know, knew the line. And it was something that I just really wanted to handle and let go of. And it didn't feel like it was in alignment with who I was. And I really noticed that the shift has been so simple. So it's interesting because I think you're talking about all those things you're talking about, meditation, all of those things definitely help our vibration. But some of us maybe will have certain things like, you know, karma in certain areas, or names that necessarily don't support us. So it's interesting to kind of uncover what else we can do to strengthen our vibration from a foundational perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm all for anything that raises our frequency. Even like people that have like really strong, strong admiration for, I was just talking about this with a friend last night, like really strong admirations for like crystals and like things around, like all of these things are tools that we have access to here in this physical experience to help raise our frequency if we use it for that. Others could be like, I hate how shiny that thing is, and like I feel worse when I have crystal around me. So it's really like a perspective for us. But no, when it comes to the things that you uncover with your name and numerology, it's awesome, because that new awareness that you didn't have before you looked into that, you had some aha moments like, ooh, that's awesome. So now when you think about crafting the new name, now it's like every time you think about it, it's like a raise in frequency as well. So I love it. I love all of it. Anything that can raise our individual like vibration here and now is awesome, because it's just going to allow us to go live, like we really wanted to live when we chose to come here, and be an example for others and inspiration for others, and just really enjoy this life, while we're here. So I'm all for it. I love it. Well, only other thing that I'm really curious about for you, Aloise, I ask everybody this because I love how the internet lives on forever. Well, as far as we know, and I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. So someone can be attracted to this episode right when it's released, or it could be attracted to this episode 50 years from now. And hello to you out there 50 years later. Hopefully I'm still here, but maybe not promised to us. But anyways, anything that you would want to share with the audience, that, anytime that they hear this, that you feel it would make an impact on them. Could be any subject, anything you become aware of in your life, anything that flows out of you.
Sure. Well, let's talk about Dharma, because that's something I have uncovered myself, and it was like putting a pair of glasses on and like looking at the world in a totally different way. So the word Dharma comes from the Vedic text. So the Vedas are a very ancient text, like the Indian equivalent of the Bible would be the simplest way I would describe them. And this wisdom was passed down from kings and queens to sages to kind of the upper echelons of society. And it wasn't told to the likes of you and I. It was literally kept, for the creme de la creme of the countries. And the Dharma, the word from the Vedic text, means the path of right action. So what they talk about in the Dharmic text is that everybody is completely unique. And all of us have a gift that we can bring to this world. And what they also talk about is essentially when we have the courage to do our Dharma, to uncover our purpose, to follow the steps that they talk about in the Vedic texts, we kind of get onto this like magical path. And that magical path is us essentially being who we are. Now, of course, we're trained out of this in a way. Our education system kind of divides and separates us and teaches us not to speak up and not to be different, and also kind of not to necessarily follow what we're passionate about. But what the Vedic texts talk about is your passions are the breadcrumb trail to the correct path in life. Now, when you do the things that you're passionate about and you combine that with your unique gifts and talents, and you use them in service to other people, that is when you kind of activate this path. And they say, essentially, we're always being guided. So we have this inner sat nav that, again, we're not taught to use. So if you look at excitement as your sat nav, so when you follow, I always talk about following your highest excitement. When you follow your highest excitement to the best of your ability with no expectation on the outcome, you're walking the optimal path in life, because that's you being as close to you and to God who made you, or your maker, whatever you want to call it. And that effectively, that high vibrational state will take you through life, and as we've talked about before, pull in synchronicities, the right people, etc., etc. So the thing that was fascinating for me is when I learned all about this stuff was I kind of got to look back at my life, and I could see where I'd been ignoring my own wisdom and guidance because I didn't understand what it was. So what it talks about is, where you're excited, you follow that, but also where you get resistance, you need to listen to that. So think about a relationship you've stayed in too long. Think about a job that you've done for too long. Like I was in a job for 12 years, and the final 2 years, every day I didn't want to go to work. Every day I literally dragged myself out of bed because I didn't want to be there anymore. But fear stopped me from leaving. The stories I was telling myself about I couldn't get another job, would I be paid as well? All of that stuff was stopping me listening to my own inner wisdom. Now, when I started to learn and understand about Dharma, now what I realize is actually that resistance was my soul saying, right, it's time to move on. It's time to come to the next thing. It's time to now trust yourself and take that leap. So again, if you guys are listening to this, and you're in a position in your life where maybe you're going through the motions, maybe you're scared about what will happen next, follow the thing that is most exciting to you, because that is your inner sat nav taking you to the next place. And then it's about trust and faith. And what I've seen time and time again when people come through my program, they start to learn the tools that I teach them, is miraculous things happen when we have the courage to go after our highest dreams. I remember one lady who came through and she identified through the program that, with all her unique gifts, she was very much about serving other people, and she wanted to become a soul coach. And she was working as a nurse. And again, she was getting this resistance. She knew she needed to move on. She was scared, but she identified that she wanted to become a soul coach. So I said to her, right, go and find loads of different courses that resonate with you and find the one you want to do. So she came back a week or so later. She found this $10,000 course, wanted to do it, didn't have the money, but she absolutely wanted to do it. And I said, well, why don't you go and just have a meeting with them and find out more about it? Now, she did that. She went and had a meeting with them. And again, she's like, oh my God, I want to do it even more. And I was like, right, let's set your intention that you want to do it. Her partner came back the following week from her workplace. They both worked at this hospital. And she came back and she basically gave her this form which said they were basically giving grants to people who had been at the hospital and worked there for over a sort of 5-year period to do further education. Now, she got this $10,000 to do this course. And I've seen that time and time again where we actually take the step. So this is the other thing the Dharmic texts talk about. They actually say your path isn't activated. You can't just think your way into it. You have to physically take the action towards it. And it's almost like, I always use a game show over here where it's called the Crystal Maze, and you used to go in and used to complete this puzzle, and then the door would open and then you go through into the next stage. And that's kind of what life's like. You have to take the action, move forward commit to where you want to go, to what you want to be doing, trust, have faith. If it's exciting to you, then the next piece of the puzzle will come in, or the next synchronicity will happen, or the right person will show up. But most of us stop ourselves because we're scared.
Absolutely. Wow. Re-listen to what Aloise just shared right there. Go rewind that and listen to that again. So it's so powerful. Like, I'm so pro following our highest excitement. As like, for me, life is like so binary. It's like option A or B. Do I feel a stronger energetic pull to do this or do this? Like, it's always like, go out to the invitation that I've got invited to do something, or stay at home and chill and relax. Like, it's just, and it's always like on that excitement level, and it always leads me to a great next step. Like, the journey unfolds so perfectly. That's so good. I'm so happy that I asked you that.
So you're doing it. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
You're absolutely doing it. You're absolutely
On
doing
purpose.
it.
I've become aware of the follow the highest excitement. Actually, the first time I heard anybody word it that way was Bashar. So that made it like really conscious. And I was still living my life anyways, because like, I've been accused at different times in my life of being selfish. And my excuse was, well, you will like being around me way more if I'm happy. I just knew that internally. I was like, if I'm not happy, if I'm not taking care of my own vibe, like, you're not going to want to be around me anyway. So, let me do what I need to do to feel good. And then you're going to have a lot more fun around me. I'll have a lot more fun around you and others. So that's even before becoming aware of anything. It's always kind of been, I just like to feel like happy. Like, I think all of us do. That's just like my perspective. So following highest excitement, well, that's easy, because I know that by doing that, like my vibration is going to rise, momentum is going to pick up. It's not going to feel like, hard work if I'm doing something that I actually enjoy. And
You got it.
I've been there in the corporate world, working jobs that I didn't want to work at, dragging myself to work, going to sit in traffic on the way there and back. I've been there for sure. And I knew that there had to be something different, for me to live. That wasn't going to be my lifestyle.
So for those people listening, like, you do it beautifully. No, it sounds like you're a natural. But for those of you,
too.
but for those people listening, like, if you can really live moment to moment, like, what is the thing that's most exciting for me next? It's powerful. Like, it's simple, but it's groundbreaking and it's powerful. And like Noel just described, you're literally living in the high vibrational state. And it's, quantum physics, you're kind of going through attracting all the right stuff that you want to attract, because you're living and being true to yourself in the moment.
Absolutely. Like, I did it right before our conversation, Kitty. Like, I literally, so I had like an hour before our conversation. So I had like an hour, and I was like, it'd be really fun to go, because there's things from the grocery store I wanted to get so that I could have some food that I wanted to eat after our conversation. So I was like, it'd be really fun to just go get some exercise, go ride a bike really quick, and, see if I could get there, with about 30 minutes there and back, challenge myself, get what I need to get and get back. And it was just like a fun challenge for me. And then, had fun conversation in the grocery store really quick, and then came back, and then did our podcast. So
love it. Love it, love it, love it.
Yeah. So that's awesome advice. I'm really happy that you shared that. And yeah, I mean, I'm rooting for everybody out there to do that, because like, we all want to be around you and be rooting for you, seeing you living in that highest excitement, that passion, and then you'll be creating what you're here to create and all of these things.
And one final thing, because I think this is the really important piece of the puzzle, like, this is our destiny. So our Dharma is why we came. Okay. This is why we're on the planet, to do our Dharma. Now, there's a bigger reason. The world needs us. I do believe we're at a critical point in humanity's existence. And what the Vedic texts talk about is, when we have the courage to do our Dharma, effectively, what will happen with enough people uncovering their purpose, this ripple effect will be huge. But also what it will do, it will give us the solutions to the problems that we have on the planet. So if you imagine all these people living the way that you do now, the way that I do, on this higher vibrational state, essentially it's a consciousness shift that we're looking for. And we will come up with the solutions to the problems that we have on the planet. So this is why I do this work. There's work to be done on this planet, and we really need to step into and have the courage to live our higher purposes.
Absolutely. And you're such a beautiful example of taking something, and all of us have this like unique, you mentioned it multiple times, as far as having just a unique gift to share, or just reason for being here, and like how we chose like which families to be a part of. Like, I love that we talked about all this on this episode, because there's 7 billion of us, 7.7 billion of us on the planet, and we all have something that if we were following that Dharma, like, it would be a little bit different. And so but it makes the whole, it makes the collective, what it needs to be. And that's why I love sharing this planet and rooting for everybody, and asking questions on how can I help more people have the light bulb turn on? How can I help people have the time and the money to actually go live out the things, whether it be like they want to make environmental change, but right now they're at a job they don't want to be at. So for me, it's like, I want to help the light bulb come on and help you, encourage you to be out of the job so you can go put your attention on the environment, if that's what you want, or whatever area of life that is what you want. So I'm right there with you. Like, I just want to, if I would have played professional sports, I'm not sure I would be doing all of this stuff. So like, now I can see that. And I'm appreciative of that. So this is awesome. Great conversation. I love it. Well, you guys definitely follow Aloise on social media. I don't know if you're going to switch your handles right now. Your Kitty Talks on social media. So, but all her links will be in this bio or in the description. But definitely follow her, and you'll be able to feel all the energy that she's sharing in this conversation. If you're inspired to work with her, or through coaching or anything that she's doing, definitely do it. Follow the energetic pull. That's always my advice to everyone, and it's a great next step on any of our journeys when we do that. And just really appreciate you coming and spending your time and energy with us here on Valentine's Day. Give you back to your husband. We did good on time.
Well, thank you so much. It's just been wonderful to come and talk to your audience. And yeah, if it's what I've said is exciting, then yeah, come check me out and let's do this.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys out there for tuning into another episode of Enlightened Conversations. Definitely share this episode. It will be of great benefit and impact to anyone you're inspired to share it with. And rate and review the podcast and subscribe if you're not already. Make it easier for people to find these awesome episodes. And I'll keep bringing you awesome humans like Aloise and having fun and sharing this love and light with you all. So without further ado for me, without further ado, you guys have an amazing day whenever you hear this, and we'll talk to you soon. Sending positive vibes to you all. Awesome.
Bye.
That was fun.